Hello and welcome to part 11 of Overthinking Donkey Kong Country. We're looking at Millstone Mayhem, the final level of Monkey Mines and the first temple level in the game. This level says a lot about the story and the world it takes place in. It tells us a lot about the Kremlings' history, their motivation and connection to the island. I don't think it's a coincidence that it's the last level in this world either. We'll dive into all that later. First, let's look at some other stuff. Now, given the name, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the theme of this level is the millstones, but I feel the theme is simply the tile set itself. Sure, the biggest addition to the gameplay is the millstones, followed closely by the introduction of the crushers, but I don't feel like either of those new enemies add more than the overall atmosphere of the temple theme does. Compare this level to, say, Stop and Go Station, or for a better example, Temple Tempest in Vine Valley, to see how the centerpiece of the gameplay really sticks out as the most memorable part of the level. And what the existence of this temple says about the island is no small deal. In fact, I'd say it brings a whole new level of depth to the world. Throughout Monkey Mines, we've seen man-made structures, ranging from very recent to perhaps a few decades old, but nothing so clearly ancient as this temple. It instantly changes the way you look at and think about the game and the world that it takes place in. It instantly widens the scope of the conflict. Civilization has existed on DK Island, likely centuries ago, for potentially 1,000 years or more. There's no telling what else could be on the island, or what's happened since. There's also some conflicting details in the environment. The ruins are overgrown with vines and crumbling in places. They're clearly ancient, and it's obvious that they're not in use anymore, at least not in the way they were originally intended. Yet there are lit torches in the background, as well as what look to be large ceramic jars that have somehow remained unbroken and relatively clean despite being out in the elements. I have a theory about that. It's pretty out there, but it's a good one. But it'll have to wait just a little longer because there's something bigger I want to talk about first. This level, in my humble opinion, gives us the second reason the Kremlings are after DK Island. It used to be Kremling Island. Well, maybe not exclusively. I mean, the giant ape-head rock formation that makes up the bulk of the island tells me that the Kong clan aren't exactly new to the place. But once upon a time, perhaps both Kongs and Kremlings shared the island. The most important environmental detail backing this up is the Kremling busts at the top of the pillars in the background. The temple is clearly ancient. The busts are clearly Kremlings. It's not a stretch to say that the Kremlings built this temple, and a long time ago, so they must have lived on the island a long time ago. Maybe the two clans coexisted for a time. Maybe there was a huge feud between the two long ago that ended with the Kremlings either being forced out or leaving of their own volition. I'm very much starting to think that's the case, and there's some more stuff coming next episode that I feel backs it up. In regards to the conflict, I think the Kongs were content to share the island, but the Kremlings weren't. That's not an idea I'm pulling out of nowhere either. There's evidence in the levels. Look at Congo Jungle. The only man-made structures are their homes, nothing else. Compare that to Monkey Mines. The Kremlings have delved and destroyed, spread and reshaped the island with zero regard for the environment or the other inhabitants. We see it in the mines, we see it in the ruins, we see it a whole lot more in the last two worlds too. The setting of Donkey Kong Country 2 backs up these ideas, but we are a long way from getting into that. And believe me, I am dying to get into Donkey Kong 2. It's my all-time favorite game. In fact, the idea for this series came from replaying Donkey Kong Country 2 with one of my best mates. Before we call it on Millstone Mayhem, I have one more ridiculous theory I'd like to throw your way. The jars in the background. It's kind of weird that they're in such good condition while the rest of the temple is falling apart. What are they, and what are they doing in the temple? Maybe, and this is a big maybe, a huge maybe, maybe they're canopic jars. I don't know if I'm saying that right either. Canopic jars are used to hold the internal organs of someone being mummified. I'm not going to get into canopic jars and the mummification process, because I don't want to and it's not relevant, but it kicked off a line of thinking that led to this theory. What if the rock crocs from the previous level were somehow created using some kind of ancient ritual right here in this temple? What if, during the war between the Kongs and the Kremlings, the rock crocs were created to turn the tide of a losing fight, only for the Kremlings to find that they don't listen to orders? What if the rock crocs inadvertently did so much damage to the Kremling forces that it was the very thing that caused them to leave the island altogether? They might have even destroyed the temple in the process. Maybe it was the ancient Kongs that sealed them away in Stop and Go Station. Maybe those same Kongs invented the Stop and Go barrels to subdue them. It wouldn't surprise me if the barrels we see throughout the island, suspended in the air, are actually from those ancient Kongs. Yeah, I know, that's getting pretty out there. Also, I didn't mention it before, but my boy Winky's back in this level. Alright, that one got pretty bonkers towards the end. For what it's worth, I want to point out that while some of these ideas fit really nicely into the established canon, for the most part, they're all just ideas. Nintendo and Rareware have always put gameplay before story, and even in more story-driven franchises like Zelda and Metroid, the lore is thrown out on a dime if it conflicts with the gameplay. The Donkey Kong games were never meant to be looked at under a microscope, they're meant to be played and enjoyed. I think that's at least part of the reason why they hold up so well today. With that said, I don't think everything I've covered so far is completely bogus. I love the way the first 2 levels tell one cohesive story and paint a picture of life on the island. I think the broad strokes of my theories are very deliberate. For example, Kremkrok Industries and Chimp Caverns show how the Kremlings are destroying the environment. And I think at least part of this episode, the idea that Kremlings had some sort of civilization on DK Island a long time ago, definitely checks out. Alright, this episode is entirely too long and entirely too weird. If you're still watching, first of all, what the hell's the matter with you? And second, from the bottom of my cold, dead heart, thank you so much. The premise of this series is just so dumb, but I'm having way too much fun over analysing the game and making these videos, and it's so cool to see others enjoying it too. If anyone wants to continue the conversation about Millstone Mayhem, comment below and we'll get into it. Otherwise, take care of yourselves and have a beautiful day.